Hey y'all, Grandma Rose here. I'm going to try something today. I just did a video on seed saving, and one of the things that I read about, and I don't know how to talk about this. Okay, one of the methods to determine if seeds are actually ripe or not, or mature or not, is called the float test. Now, the float test is not 100% accurate. I read a couple of articles, and one of them was a scientific article. I forgot what it was, produced by some government agency. I'm not exactly sure. It looked like it was pretty old too. But being old doesn't matter. I mean, this is a method that has been used for a very, very, very long time. If it was 50 years old, the article doesn't make, it doesn't matter, because the same method is still used today. And a lot of people will gauge whether their seeds are ripe enough by the float test. So that's what I'm going to do today. I have a butternut squash that I saved from last year. So I'm going to cut the squash open. I'm going to scoop out the seeds, and then I'm going to see if they float or not. Now, this butternut squash has had plenty of time. It was ripe when I picked it, and it is certainly ripe by now. It's had several months to mature. Hold on just a sec. I'm going to get a jar of water, and we're going to try something. In fact, I'm going to try a couple of different things if one doesn't work. So I will be right back. I'm back. Now, what I'm going to do, this has tough skin, and I may or may not be able to cut this off easily. We're going to see how I ended up doing it, maybe. I think it's easier going to be for me if I do it this way, kind of at an angle. Something nibbled on this squash while it was still in the ground. Might have been a chicken, because my chickens got in there. Turn this, I think I'll turn this, how is it going to stand up straight, which is just like that. Put this knife down in the middle. Knife like that. Now I'm just going to cut down through it. Pop it open. And go. And there's all these seeds inside of it. And look how dry they are. Isn't that amazing? Had a long time to mature. And they feel a little bit slimy. But they're, well, of course they're not dry, but they're not, they're hard. This is great. These seeds are wonderful. So let me do this. I feel pretty sure these seeds are really good. For the most part, these are pretty clean. Okay, now what I'm going to look at, first of all, this seed is just really, really tough and hard. That's about as, feels to me, as about as mature as you can get. Find some, look at these. Well, for one thing, they look a little bit different, don't they? They're not quite... Compare the seeds, these seeds on this side of my hand to these seeds on this side of my hand. These are discolored. And can you see how they're shaped? I mean, they're more flattened, where these are more dome shaped. Do you see that? See how rounded these ones are? And when you pinch on these, they're hollow. I mean, look at that. I mean, I think it'll probably bend even. Make it bend. Yeah, it'll bend. A lot of them you can't get to do that, but these seeds definitely are not good seeds. We can put these aside with the other ones. But I would go through these before I did anything else and just push on them. And any of them that give, I'm just going to put aside. Oops. But for this purpose, I'm not going to do that. We're going to assume that they're all good. And then we'll find out if any of them float, if any of them sink. So that's why this is called a float test. I read one, I think it was on a forum, someone was asking about the float test. And he had called it a sink or swim test. So the seeds that sink are good, the seeds that swim are not any good. So here we go. Take these seeds, I'm going to put half of them, approximately half of them in that bowl, and half of them over here. I don't know. Maybe, it doesn't matter if they're half and half exactly. Now, but what I'm going to do, let's see here, here's the water. Bring my water right here, and I've got 2 jars of water. One of them I'm going to put some Dawn in. This, I like this. I just got this. They make these squirt tops for that fit the mason jars. I like this. Put a couple of squirts of Dawn in that one. Now what the Dawn does, let me stir it up a little bit. It's called a surfactant. In other words, it cuts the surface tension. That's what a surfactant is. It cuts the surface tension. And water uses the surface tension on the edge of a vessel to actually rise. If it doesn't have the surface tension on it, it's just going to sit flat. That's how water rises in a plant, from the roots up to the tip. There's no mechanics involved. It's simply surface tension on the inside of it's called the xylem. It's one of the vessels in the plant tissue that's simply for water movement. So what I'm going to do is I'm putting some of these seeds in the water. Here's an empty seed. Put that in there anyway. Let's see what happens. That empty seed floated. Can you see that seed floating in there? I may have to do this sideways in a second. Move the camera position so you can see it sideways. Put these seeds in this side. And look at this. They're all floating. We know these seeds are good. Some of them may not be, but I know they're good. I tested them. I mean, I pushed on them. They felt hard. They felt as ripe as they could be. Now I'm going to put some of these in the side that has the detergent in it. Okay, those are floating too. So it's not surface tension that's keeping these seeds from sinking. So what does this say? Just looking at this. So just this test, what would you determine from this? You know, I don't want any detergent whatsoever in this other jar. So I'm going to go rinse the spoon off. After I rinsed it off, I changed my mind. I'm going to use 2 separate spoons. This spoon I got out of my drying rack. This is the spoon that I just used. It's still wet where I rinsed it off. I'm going to stir this one up into there. I'm going to stir these up in here. See if that's going to make any difference. I'm going to let them sit for a little while. Because one of the things that I read about was that sometimes the seeds will just have a bubble of air trapped on the outside of them, and that'll make them float, even if the seed itself is ripe. So I thought, well, maybe if we can use the dishwashing detergent, and remove the surface tension, maybe that'll keep the air from sticking to the outside of the seed, and that might make the ones that are in the Dawn sink faster than the ones that do not have any kind of detergent in it. So let's see what happens. So let me set my timer. I'm going to see how long this takes. Okay, y'all, it has been 15 minutes. I set the timer, and so far in this jar we have one. This is the jar with no detergent. One seed has sunk to the bottom. This jar that has the detergent, you can see the bubbles on the top of it. No seeds have sunk to the bottom. So I'm going to stop this at this point. I will leave these seeds in the water and see how long it takes them to actually sink or not to sink. But in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start some seeds and do a germination test. So let me go get, I'm going to use paper towels, or a paper towel and some seeds, and we're going to test and see whether these seeds actually will germinate or not. Not going to depend on this float test, which apparently is not going to be very accurate, at least not for butternut squash seeds. Might be accurate for other things, but it's not apparently accurate for butternut squash, at least not within 15 minutes. So let me come back with paper towel and a little bit. It's going to be dampened. I'm just going to use tap water. Tap water should be fine. Okay, let me move these jars over to the side, and I will do some seeds, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I'll put these spoons in the appropriate jars. Now, I just have paper towel that I have dampened. I wet it at the sink, and then I squeezed the water out of it. I'm going to do 10 seeds. Oops. With my knife. Do 10. Towel. Fold that over that way. Fold that over this way, and I'm just going to roll it up. Actually, I think I'm going to roll with the seeds in the middle. Flip it over that way and that way. Put it in a plastic bag. Then roll the plastic bag up, leaving it open at the top. I mean, at least not sealed at the top, because they do need a little bit of air. Now the plastic bag should keep the paper towel from drying out. So there we go. I've got it in a plastic bag that has not been sealed at the top. There's a little bit of an opening there. And I will check it, and if it feels like it's starting to dry out, I will add just a little bit more water to it. You want the paper towel to be damp, but not soggy wet. The seeds actually need oxygen. They need some air. If they're not going to germinate very well if they're just sitting in water. So they need to be damp but not wet. And here we go. I'm going to let these go. I probably will keep them away from my animals. So I'm going to put this on the top of my refrigerator. And we know the refrigerator top is going to be warmer than probably any other place in this kitchen. I will come back and I'll check this every day, and I don't know how long it's going to take these seeds to germinate. I would probably need to look at a chart. So that's it for today, and I will be back with you and let you know the results of the float test as well as the germination test. Now, it's the next day, and look here. I've got spoons in both of these cups, or these are not cups. Spoons in both of these jars. This is the jar. They're in the same position they were before. This is the jar that had no detergent in it. And there are 2 seeds floating at the top. And this is the jar that had detergent in it. And there are two seeds floating in the top of that. Actually, yesterday afternoon, all of the seeds except for these two had sunk to the bottom of this jar. So this is, you can see this, all down in the bottom of the seeds. And the same thing here. All down in the bottom of the water are the seeds. So apparently it just takes a little while for these winter squash seeds to sink to the bottom. This probably is not the best method to determine if these seeds are ripe or not. In a few days we'll find out the germination on the ones that I started yesterday. That's actually always the best method. This method is, I won't call it a myth because it's not a myth, but it's not entirely accurate. One of the articles that I read yesterday about this said that sometimes good seeds are going to float on the top, and that the germination from the seeds that have floated to the top and the seeds that have sunk to the bottom are very similar. And one of the articles that I read showed that the seeds that had floated to the top actually had a higher germination rate than the ones that had sunk to the bottom. So don't depend on the seeds sinking to determine whether your seeds are good or not. I think the main thing to do is to look at them, to examine them, and if you want to do this, you can do this, it's fine. As I thought, when I looked at these and they all floated, that can't be right because I know these seeds are ripe. And I was correct. So anyway, this is a fun thing to try, and if you want to try it, then that's great. But don't depend on it as being entirely 100% accurate. Well, hello, kitty kitty. There we go, y'all. See this? Here's the seeds at the bottom of this jar. Whoops. In here. Stir it around a little bit, you can see. See down there? Here's the seeds in that jar. All down to the bottom. And again here, the same thing here. There's all the seeds down in the bottom of that jar. Let me fish these out. There's one, and there's one. Those are the two. These are the two seeds right there. That were in that. Let me get the two of them from the other one also. There's one. There's that one. Okay, now let's look at these. That seed's pretty hard. That one, not. Look at that. Can you see it? And the same thing here. These two seeds actually are there. No, that one is not. This one right here. Where'd it go? This one, push on it. That seed, you push on it and it's empty. This one right here, on the other hand, no, that one's empty also. So both of these seeds were empty. They had not developed. That one is slimy, but see, that's just completely empty. And the same thing here. It's empty. This one, on the other hand, feels a little hard. I don't know what's wrong with that one. And this one is empty. So of these, the ones that floated, these two had not developed inside. This one had not developed. This one feels relatively hard. That one might actually germinate. I feel like testing it. In fact, I think I might plant this one. Or if not plant this one, put it in a paper towel like the other one and see what happens. Hey y'all. It has been, I think about 5 days, and I wanted to show you what we have here. I checked a chart that showed the time to germination of several different kinds of seeds, and it said that squash germinated in 4 days. So I waited, I started checking it 3 days to be sure. And I didn't get anything until 4 days. This is the seed that had floated to the top of the container that had the soapy water in it. And I said it looked like it might be good. So I went ahead, so this started a day later. And look at this. It is germinating. Now these two, you see two over here with these other ones that have a long root on them. And those are two from the ones that sank. Or this was just from that, just the general seeds. And two of them germinated. And this was odd because they all look like they should germinate. So what I did, there I peeled off the seed coat. This was this morning, just a few minutes ago, starting at the blunt end, like right here. Right there. Starting at the blunt end, you notice that all of them are sprouting from the pointed tip. Like this point on that, that's where they were sprouting. So I started at the opposite end, so I wasn't going to damage anything. And look at here, you see them, every one of them is actually sprouting. They were just a little bit slower than the other ones, but I was impatient. I wanted to see. So yeah, look at that, see that? They're all sprouting. They were just slower. So I was going to get 100% germination on these. And that's what I thought. They looked like they were all good. So yes, that was a good test, and all of those seeds were very good. And there's the answer.